Hello, Group Violet. Awesome to have you. Group Violet is the group for ages 5 to 8. That is, if you're here in this group, you are either 5-year old, 6-year old, 7-year old, or 8-year old, and it's awesome to have you. My name is Mrs. Adikunle, but you can call me sometimes Mrs. Adikunle. Adikunle can be too much of a mouthful. Mrs. Adikunle. It can be too much of a mouthful. If you'd like to call me that, that's fine. But on the other hand, you can call me Auntie Muki. Auntie Muki, Mukky. It's a name that so many people call me. My mother always called me that when I was a child. Yes, right from when I was born. So a lot of my relatives, my cousins, my friends picked it up from my mother and they call me that. And I think it's high time we began to bring up that name even amongst us here with the children. If it's something you feel comfortable calling me, if you'd like to call me that, if it makes you feel more comfortable, feel free to call me Auntie Muki. Nice to have you, lovely children, awesome children, great children. Today we're talking about this 2 weeks. We're going to be together for 2 weeks. This 2 weeks we're going to be doing a lot of getting to know one another. We're going to get to know one another. We're going to talk together. We're going to talk a lot about creative writing. That's what this is about. And guess what? Writing is a superpower. Yes, it is a superpower. It is one of those things, one of those skills, one of those abilities that can make you become really great. Really, really great. Awesome writing and awesome speech. Awesome speaking. They are wonderful skills that can make you really, really, really great. Now, if you're thinking something in your heart and you don't know how to say it out, how will anybody know the beautiful, awesome things you're thinking in your heart? If you're so awesome on the inside of you and you don't know how to say the beautiful things that are in your heart, you have such wonderful imagination. I don't know how to say it. Some people draw the things that are in their hearts. Those people are blessed. But some other people cannot draw and they cannot paint. So how do you paint the beautiful pictures that are in your heart if you're not able to say them and you're not able to write them? So now that's a superpower, don't you think? It's time for us to begin to learn how to build those superpowers, how to ignite those our writing superpowers and take it to the highest levels, and use our writing and speaking powers to shine and shine. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing in our classes, in our creative writing, in our Ignite Your Creative Writing Powers. Nurture It ignites your creative writing superpowers. Nurture It ignites your creative writing superpowers. Nurture It ignites your creative writing superpowers program. Okay, so today we want to start by talking about telling stories. When you tell a story, how do you tell your story? Does the story have a beginning? Does it have a middle part? And then does it have an end? Can you tell a story in 3 parts? That is the beginning of the story, what happened in the beginning, and then what next? And then after that, at the end of the story, what happened? How did the story end? How does your story end? Who can tell a story in 3 parts? Can you try to tell a story in 3 parts? Everybody should be able to try. If you're 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, you should be able to tell a simple story in 3 parts. The simplest of stories. You can even tell a Cinderella story in 3 parts. You can tell a story of 3 little hens in 3 parts. 3 little pigs in 3 parts. Just make it short and simple. Okay? Once upon a time, I was going on a walk. As I went on the walk, I saw a lovely garden. And I walked in to have a look. That's my part 1. While I was in the garden, touching the flowers and the leaves, suddenly I saw a spider. It frightened me so much that I ran and I never went back. I never went back to that garden ever again. Now that's a story in 3 parts. First was the part where I was walking down and then I saw the garden. And then I walked in. Then the second part is where as I was touching the leaves and touching the flowers, and then I see the spider that scared me. Then the third part is where I ran away, and then I never went back there. That's how the story ends. Now, that's me having told the story in 3 parts. Now, I want each of us, each of you here, to tell me a story in 3 parts. Tell me your story in 3 parts. Any story at all in 3 parts. Or to help you, who knows the story about the 3 little pigs? Can you tell me the story about the 3 little pigs in 3 parts? If you cannot, can you tell me any story at all? How you woke up this morning, what you did yesterday. You can tell me any story at all in 3 parts. Or tell me anything at all in 3 parts. What makes you angry? What makes you angry? What makes you happy? You can tell me about that in 3 parts. So that is your activity that's the activity I'm expecting you to do for me. I will have a look at that, and then we'll take it from there. Make sure you have fun doing it. I've already given you an example. Now you tell me that story using a voice note. You can use a video, you can use a voice note. Just let me know it's from you. Put your name on it, and your age on it, and your class on it. When I say your class, I mean what group do you belong to? You tell me your group Violet, so I know who I'm dealing with when I'm reading or watching. When I'm when I'm listening to your story or watching you say your story. Okay? Remember, I said make it in a video form or in a voice note form. Either of the two. I've not asked you to write. Don't write it just yet. Just say it for me. But if you feel comfortable writing, go ahead. For those of us who feel comfortable writing, go ahead and write. If you feel comfortable saying it and then writing it, go ahead and do just that. Okay? But what I'm asking you to do is simple. Say it for me in a voice note or do a video of you saying it. Okay? And then post it to the group. I would love to see that. I'm also going to be sharing with you other examples of how to write stories in different parts, how to create stories in different parts. It's so important that stories are told in parts. A story must have what we call a sequence. A sequence. Everybody say that. A sequence. That is, it follows from one step to the other step to the other step. What happens first? What happens next? What happens next? What happens next? And the sequence must make sense. I was coming down the staircase, and then I flew. Doesn't make sense. I was coming down the staircase, and then I fell down. As I fell down, an eagle saw me falling down and thought, Eureka! I have food to eat now. And the eagle came and picked me up and took me up in the sky. And suddenly I saw myself flying. Now that is a sequence. Something happened that led to another thing, and then led to another thing that led to another thing. Your stories must not be scattered. You're saying one thing now, then all of a sudden you're saying something totally different that is not even related to the first thing you were saying. So you see, it's important that our stories have a sequence. That means our stories come in parts that make sense. One part, then the next part that follows, that leads to one part that leads to the next part, then that leads to the third part, that leads to the fourth part. Yeah, that leads to the next and the next and the next part. That's how we make stories in sequence. It must have what we call a sequence, or we can call it a flow. So when someone is telling a story that doesn't have a sequence, see, your story has no sequence. Your story doesn't flow. That means your story doesn't make sense. If your story does not have a sequence, it does not flow, it means it does not make sense. So, we learned today how to write stories, how to make stories in 3 parts, how to tell stories in 3 parts, and then we can write them if we like. And then also we're learning that there's such a thing as sequence. Sequence, telling stories that flow, that follow a sequence. One thing leading to the other thing, then the other thing. Okay? Remember, when you're telling your story in 3 parts, the story must have the beginning, then what is it that happened afterwards? What is it that happened afterwards? Then how did the story end? Okay, so remember that and good luck with it. God bless. See you between 4 and 6 when I can see your face and you can see mine, and together we can talk a little more. Okay? All right. Bye-bye.